This story is titled, "My fiancée tore up my passport to force me to spend time with her, so I dumped her immediately." Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey Reddit, so this is going to sound crazy, but I've been holding on to this for a while. I'm Jason, 29 male, and I live in a mid-sized city. Nothing fancy about my life. I've got a solid administrative job, a decent apartment, and until recently, I was engaged to someone I thought was my forever person. Turns out I was catastrophically wrong. Buckle up for this one because my fiancée Amber, 28 female, decided to redefine what toxic means in a relationship. Let me back up a bit. For the past few years, I've been grinding at my job. It's not glamorous. Lots of spreadsheets, emails, and meetings that could have been emails. But I've been consistent and reliable. Finally, that hard work paid off, and my boss tapped me for a series of international business trips. These weren't just little trips for sightseeing or corporate dinners. They were game changers. Networking events, meetings with high-profile clients, and real opportunities to boost my career. When I told Amber, she was all smiles at first. She acted super excited for me, telling me how proud she was, and even helping me pick out new luggage. She was all like, "You're going to crush it out there. Show them what you've got." For a minute, I thought I was one of those lucky guys who had a partner who actually wants to see them succeed. But I was dead wrong. At first, everything seemed normal. We talked about how I'd call her every night while I was gone, how I'd bring her something cool from Europe, and how this would just be a stepping stone to something bigger for both of us. But as the weeks went by, I noticed subtle changes in her vibe. For starters, anytime I mentioned the trip, her face would twitch. Not like a full-on frown, but this barely there grimace, like she was trying to hold it together but couldn't quite pull it off. Then she started making weird comments like, "Do you really need to go on this trip? Isn't there another way to impress your boss?" Or, "I feel like this company is taking advantage of you." I brushed it off as her just being bummed about me leaving for a few weeks. I figured she'd get over it, but then she started dialing it up. One day, while I was double-checking my itinerary, she let out this huge sigh and said, "You know, I just feel like you're prioritizing work over us lately." That threw me off because we've always been good about balancing things. I reminded her that the trip was temporary and that it wasn't like I was packing up and moving to another country permanently. She just shrugged and gave me this tight smile that screamed, "I'm not okay, but I'm not going to tell you why." Now, Amber is... how do I put this nicely? She's the kind of person who thrives on being the center of attention. Whether it's her birthday, a random Tuesday, or the anniversary of the day she found her favorite lipstick shade, she needs everything to be about her. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for spoiling my partner and making them feel special. But Amber takes it to a level that could make a narcissist blush. For example, last month, we went out for dinner with my coworkers. And somehow, Amber managed to turn the entire conversation toward her job. She works as a graphic designer, which is great. But by the end of the night, everyone knew the name of her boss, her latest projects, and how she's single-handedly saved the team during a tight deadline. Meanwhile, no one even knew why we were at dinner in the first place. It was to celebrate a milestone I hit at work. But hey, who needs recognition when you have Amber? Anyway, as the trip got closer, her comments became less passive-aggressive and more, I don't know, openly bitter. She started saying things like, "I bet you're going to have so much fun without me." And, "What if something happens while you're gone? Who's going to be here for me?" At one point, I jokingly said, "I'll bring you back some chocolate to make up for it." And she just gave me this look. You know, the kind that makes you wonder if you accidentally insulted someone's entire lineage. One night, we were watching a movie, and I made the mistake of mentioning my itinerary. I thought she'd be interested. It had cool details like networking dinners and visits to major offices. Instead, she turned to me and said, "So you're just going to leave me here alone for 3 weeks and expect me to be okay with it?" "Amber," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "It's not like I'm going on vacation. This is for work. It's important." "Important for you," she shot back. "But what about us? Don't we matter?" At this point, I was starting to get frustrated. I'm not the kind of guy who thinks relationships should be all sunshine and rainbows 24/7, but this was getting ridiculous. Every time I tried to talk to her about the trip, it turned into some emotional guilt trip about how I was abandoning her. Then came the big red flag. One evening, while I was organizing my travel documents at my desk, Amber walked in and leaned against the doorframe. You really don't have to go, you know, she said. What are you talking about? I asked without looking up. I'm just saying, she continued. Maybe it's not as big of a deal as you're making it out to be. What's the worst that could happen if you stayed? You could miss the flight, and we could spend some time together instead. I paused, my pen hovering over a sticky note. Amber, I have to go, it's my job. Yeah, but your job isn't your whole life, she muttered, before walking away in a huff. I sat there for a minute, staring at my papers and trying to process what had just happened. Was she seriously suggesting I ditch this massive opportunity just to hang out at home? Who even thinks like that? But here's the thing. Amber wasn't done. She started making little digs whenever she could, like she would be laughing and saying, "Don't forget your passport. Wouldn't want you to miss your flight." Or, "What if the universe is trying to tell you something and you're ignoring it?" At this point, I wasn't just annoyed. I was starting to get genuinely uneasy. That brings us to the night before my flight. Everything was packed, my documents were ready, and I was feeling good. Then I opened the drawer where I always keep my passport, and it wasn't there. I stood there frozen for a moment, staring at the empty drawer like my passport would magically appear if I just focused hard enough. But it was gone. That awful sinking feeling hit me like a truck. This wasn't some misplaced sock or the TV remote. My entire trip, my career, depended on this one thing, and it had vanished into thin air. I yanked the drawer out completely, flipping it over to check underneath. Still nothing. My hands were already shaking as I tore through the rest of the desk, shoving papers, notebooks, and random junk aside. No sign of it. "Jason, what's going on?" Amber's voice drifted in from the doorway. I glanced up, and there she was, leaning casually against the doorframe, her damp hair wrapped in a towel, like this was just another regular night. "My passport's gone," I said, my voice strained as I opened another drawer, half expecting it to magically appear. She tilted her head and frowned. "Gone? That's weird. Are you sure you didn't put it somewhere else?" "Amber," I said, exasperated. "It's always in this drawer. Always." She stepped into the room, her brow furrowing like she was trying to figure out how a grown man could lose something so important. "Well, maybe you moved it without thinking," she offered, pulling open the top drawer of the nightstand and glancing inside. "I didn't move it," I snapped, my frustration spilling over. "I'm not careless about this stuff. It's always in the same place." Okay, she said quickly, holding up her hands. "Let's not panic. We'll find it." I appreciated the gesture. Sort of, but the way she was poking around, half-heartedly flipping through the pile of clothes on a chair, was driving me insane. I could already feel my head pounding. This wasn't the time for casual searching. "I've already checked there," I said, pointing at the spot she was looking. "Well, you never know," she said with a shrug, barely glancing up. I turned away, muttering under my breath, and ripped open the closet door. If I didn't keep moving, I was going to lose it. My brain was running a mile a minute, trying to figure out where the hell it could have gone. I'd just seen it 2 nights ago, when I was double-checking my travel documents. I remembered holding it in my hand, flipping it open, and putting it right back in the drawer. So where was it now? We tore apart the room, or at least I did. Amber floated around like she was on a scavenger hunt for something she didn't care about. She'd open a drawer, glance inside, and move on without even digging through it. "You're sure it's not at the office?" she asked suddenly, leaning against the dresser. "Why would it be at the office?" I shot back, pulling out another stack of paperwork from a box under the bed. "Maybe you brought it there to show someone or something," she said. I didn't even dignify that with a response. My frustration was bubbling over, and the more I watched her half-hearted search efforts, the angrier I got. I needed her to care about this as much as I did, but instead, it felt like she was just going through the motions. "Have you checked the kitchen?" she suggested. "The kitchen," I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Why would I keep my passport in the kitchen?" "I don't know," she snapped back. "I'm just trying to help." It felt like we were going in circles. I was turning the apartment inside out, cushions off the couch, drawers emptied onto the floor, even rummaging through the laundry hamper for some insane reason. Every passing second felt heavier, like time was physically pressing down on me. "Jason, calm down," Amber said, her voice softer now. "We'll find it." "I don't need to calm down," I said, practically growling as I moved to another corner of the room. "I need my damn passport." She sighed dramatically, and I could feel her watching me, probably wondering if I was losing my mind. Maybe I was, but who wouldn't be? My flight was in less than 10 hours, and my ticket to a better future was nowhere to be found. "Maybe you're not supposed to go," she said suddenly, her tone almost wistful. I looked up from where I was crouched, narrowing my eyes at her. "What?" I'm just saying, she continued, shrugging like it was no big deal. Maybe this is the universe's way of telling you to stay. Like, maybe something bad could happen if you leave. Or maybe you're just supposed to focus on what really matters, you know? Like us. I stared at her, trying to process what I'd just heard. Amber, you're telling me the universe wants me to miss this trip? The trip that could define my career? Really? She shrugged again, avoiding my gaze. I'm just trying to help you see the bigger picture, that's all. I shook my head, biting back the urge to say something I'd regret. Instead, I turned back to my frantic search. As I was digging through a box of random electronics cables, something clicked in my mind after I processed what she said lastly. A memory, fleeting but vivid. 2 nights ago, I'd been sitting at this very desk, organizing my documents. Amber had walked in, leaning against the doorway just like she had earlier, and started talking about how much she was going to miss me. I remembered her tone. It wasn't just sad. It was sharp, almost annoyed. I'd brushed it off at the time, but now it was glaringly obvious. She'd lingered there for a minute, watching me, before storming off in a huff when I didn't give her my full attention. My stomach dropped. Amber was still standing there, scrolling through her phone now like she'd already given up on the search. My eyes drifted to her bag sitting on the floor by the couch. Her bag, the one she always carried around. I stood up slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. My rational brain was screaming at me to stop, to not even think what I was thinking. But my gut? My gut was already 100% convinced. Amber, I said, my voice tight. Where's your bag? She looked up, confused. What? Your bag, I repeated, already walking toward it. She frowned, stepping in front of me. Why do you need my bag? What are you doing? Just let me check something, I said, my tone sharper than I intended. Her expression shifted to something between defensive and insulted. Are you serious right now? You think I have your passport? Her tone, her body language. It was all wrong. I wasn't buying it. I don't know what to think, I said, my voice louder now. But I'm checking anyway. She stepped aside, her face hardening, and I grabbed the bag. My hands trembled as I unzipped the main pocket. Nothing but tissues, her wallet, and some random junk. Then I felt it, a hidden compartment inside. My fingers brushed against something flat and firm, inside the hidden pocket of her bag. My heart skipped a beat as I slowly pulled it out. The sight of my passport, the navy blue cover with the gold insignia, made my stomach twist. Relief was fleeting. It was immediately replaced by anger and disbelief. She had taken it. I stood there for a moment, gripping the passport tightly, my mind racing. I couldn't fathom why she would do this. Amber was still standing a few feet away, her eyes widening as she noticed what I was holding. The color drained from her face, and she froze like a deer in headlights. Amber, I said, my voice low, though every fiber of my being was boiling over. What the hell is this doing in your bag? She didn't answer immediately, her mouth opening and closing as if searching for an excuse. I don't know how that got there, she finally stammered, taking a step back, her hands trembling slightly. I held the passport up for emphasis. You don't know? It magically appeared in your bag, in a hidden pocket, and you have no idea how it got there? Her face hardened suddenly, and she crossed her arms. Maybe you put it there by mistake, she said defensively, betraying her attempt at confidence. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mind was spinning, trying to process the absurdity of her response. Amber, cut me some slack, I said, stepping closer, the anger in my voice unmistakable. You hid my passport. Just admit it. Her eyes darted to the floor, then back to me. She was cornered, and she knew it. Okay, fine, she snapped. I took it, but I wasn't going to keep it forever. I just wanted you to stay. I thought if you missed the flight, we could have more time together. The audacity of her words were unbelievable. I took another step forward, towering over her. You thought stealing my passport was the solution? Are you out of your mind? Do you even realize what you've done? This isn't just some petty argument, Amber. You almost ruined my entire career. She flinched, but didn't back down. I didn't know what else to do, she yelled, her voice cracking. You've been so focused on this stupid trip and your job, and I felt like I didn't matter anymore. I just wanted you to see that we need to work on us. Work on us, I repeated, my voice dripping with disbelief. You don't work on a relationship by sabotaging your partner. What you've done isn't love, Amber. It's manipulation. Her face crumpled, tears spilling down her cheeks. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she whispered. I just wanted you to stay. I thought if you missed one flight, you'd realize how much I need you here. My jaw tightened as I stared at her. the weight of her actions sinking in. There was no coming back from this. I couldn't even look at her without feeling a mix of anger and disgust. "You've crossed a line I can't forgive," I said, my voice cold. "We're done. This relationship is over." Her eyes widened, and for a moment, she looked like she couldn't comprehend what I'd just said. "You don't mean that," she said, her voice shaking. "You're just upset. You'll calm down and we'll figure this out. I didn't mean to hurt you." "I've never been more serious," I said firmly. "We're finished. Pack your things and get out." Her expression twisted into something wild, desperation mixed with fury. "You're not leaving me!" she screamed, lunging forward. Then within seconds, she snatched the passport out of my hand before I could stop her. For a second, I was frozen, watching her grip the passport with both hands. Then, with a sickening tear, she ripped it in half like a jerk. "What are you doing, Amber?" I roared, stepping forward and grabbing her wrist before she could do anything else. My hand clamped down hard enough to stop her. "What the hell is wrong with you?" She struggled against my grip, her free hand flailing as she tried to pull away. "Let me go. Not until you understand what you've done," I growled, my voice low and dangerous. "You just destroyed my passport. Do you even realize the gravity of that? You didn't just cross the line, Amber. You obliterated it." Her sobs grew louder, her body going limp in my grasp. I let go of her wrist and stepped back, my hands shaking as I tried to rein in my temper. The pieces of my passport lay on the floor between us, a stark reminder of her betrayal. "Get the hell out of here," I said finally, my voice cold and steady. "I don't want to see you here when I get back. Get your things and get out." She sank to the floor, her sobs racking her body. "Jason, please," she begged. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was just scared. I thought you'd leave and never come back." "I was going to come back," I said, my voice sharp. "But now? Now there's nothing left to come back to. You did this, Amber, not me. You need to take responsibility for your actions." She didn't respond, just sat there crying as I turned away, unable to look at her any longer. My chest felt tight, my anger simmering just below the surface as I tried to think through my next steps. The passport was completely ruined. There was no salvaging it, but I couldn't afford to let her sabotage my future. I grabbed my phone from the counter and started searching for emergency solutions. There had to be a way to fix this in time for my flight. My mind raced as I dialed a number, the adrenaline pumping through me, keeping my focus razor sharp. Amber's sobs grew quieter behind me, but I didn't turn around. I couldn't. The woman I thought I loved, the woman I had planned a future with, had turned into someone I couldn't even recognize. Her actions spoke louder than any apology ever could. The pieces of my passport were still on the floor, but I didn't bother picking them up. There was no time for sentimentality or second-guessing. I had a flight to catch, and I wasn't going to let her ruin everything I'd worked for. My flight was still scheduled for the next morning, and somehow I needed to figure out how to replace my passport in less than 24 hours. The quick search told me that getting an emergency passport was possible, but it wouldn't be easy. I'd have to go to the nearest passport agency in person, and since it was after hours, I'd need to make an emergency appointment first thing in the morning. The catch? I'd need proof of my trip, government-issued ID, and a whole lot of luck. I called my best friend Caleb to ask for help. He immediately picked up on the urgency in my voice and asked what was wrong. I explained, trying to keep calm, that Amber had destroyed my passport. There was a noticeable pause before he responded with a shocked reaction, clearly struggling to process what I'd just told him. I laid out the details, how she had hidden it, how I found it, and how after I told her we were done, she tore it in half right in front of me. Saying it out loud only reignited the anger I was trying to suppress. Caleb didn't hold back, calling her actions next-level psycho, and asked if I was okay. I assured him I would be, but explained that I needed his help. I planned to get an emergency passport the next day, and needed someone to drive me to the agency to avoid any more sabotage from her. Without hesitation, Caleb agreed and asked what time he should be there. I told him it had to be early, 6 a.m. He promised to pick me up, and before we ended the call, reassured me that I was making the right choice by walking away from her. His words hit harder than I expected, but I knew he was right. After hanging up, I called the emergency passport line and explained my situation. They gave me an appointment for 7:30 a.m. at the nearest agency, which was thankfully only an hour's drive away. I spent the rest of the night gathering everything I'd need: my driver's license, a copy of my flight itinerary, and even an old photocopy of my passport that I'd kept for emergencies. By the time I finished, it was nearly midnight, and exhaustion was starting to set in. Amber had retreated to the bedroom, and the apartment was quiet. I didn't bother checking on her. Whatever she was feeling wasn't my concern anymore. At 6 a.m. sharp, Caleb showed up, looking half awake but ready to go. He took one look at me and shook his head. "Man, you look like you've been through hell." "I have," I said simply, climbing into his car. The drive to the passport agency was quiet, save for Caleb occasionally muttering about how insane Amber's actions were. I mean, I knew she was a bit intense, but this is next level, he said at one point, shaking his head. "She knew exactly what she was doing," I said, staring out the window. "And I can't believe I didn't see it sooner." "Well, now you know," Caleb said, "and now you can move on." When we arrived at the agency, I joined a line of other people who looked just as stressed as I felt. The process was surprisingly efficient. The staff didn't ask too many questions about why my passport was destroyed, though I could see a flicker of sympathy in one woman's eyes when I handed her the ripped pieces. The waiting was the worst part. Every minute felt like an hour, and my stomach churned with a mix of nerves and frustration. This entire mess had been avoidable, and yet here I was, fighting to fix something Amber had destroyed. 2 hours later, they called my name. I nearly sprinted to the counter, where they handed me a brand new passport. Relief washed over me as I clutched it tightly. Somehow, I'd pulled it off. On the drive back, I called my boss to update him. I kept the explanation short, just that there had been an issue with my passport, but that I'd resolved it. He seemed satisfied and reminded me to make sure I didn't miss the flight. Back at my apartment, Amber was gone. Her things were still scattered around, but she wasn't there. I didn't care where she'd gone, as long as she stayed out of my way. I packed the rest of my things quickly, making sure I had everything I needed. My phone buzzed with a message from Amber. It was an apology, half-hearted, filled with excuses about how she hadn't meant for things to escalate. I didn't reply. I deleted the message and moved on. By the time I finished packing, the cab was outside. I grabbed my bags and took one last look around the apartment. It felt empty, but not in a bad way. More like a clean slate. I left without looking back, ready to put everything behind me. At the airport, everything went smoothly. Security was quick and the gate wasn't crowded. Sitting in the boarding area, I allowed myself a moment to breathe. The passport in my bag felt like a lifeline, and the trip ahead seemed less daunting now that the worst of the storm had passed. The flight was uneventful, but my thoughts were anything but calm. I kept replaying the events in my head, the frustration building every time I thought about how calculated her actions had been. Amber's betrayal wasn't just personal. It had been deliberate and destructive. It was clear that I needed to address this beyond simply walking away. Once I landed and got through the first day of meetings, I took a moment to reassess. The trip was off to a strong start, and my boss seemed impressed. But I couldn't let the chaos Amber had caused linger in the background. During some downtime, I contacted a lawyer Caleb had recommended. I laid out everything: the stolen passport, the damage, and how it had almost cost me my career. The lawyer confirmed my suspicions. Amber's actions weren't just manipulative, they were legally questionable. Destroying the passport and interfering with my ability to travel could be considered serious offenses. The advice was clear: document everything and prepare to take legal action. As I pushed forward with the trip, I tried to focus on the work at hand. The meetings were intense, and the networking opportunities were exactly what I'd hoped for. But even as I put on a professional front, the storm back home was brewing. Amber had a decent following on TikTok, a few 100,000 people who loved her quirky, bubbly content. It wasn't unusual for her to overshare about her life, but now she had turned her platform into a weapon. While I was halfway across the world trying to salvage my career, Amber was posting videos painting herself as the victim. Her tearful videos were strategically vague, but the message was clear. She'd been abandoned by her partner before a big trip, left to pick up the pieces of a shattered relationship. There was no mention of the passport or her actions, just a carefully crafted narrative designed to gain sympathy. The videos went viral quickly, and the comments were brutal. People took her side without hesitation, calling her brave for sharing her story. Mutual acquaintances chimed in, fueling the fire, and soon, strangers were digging up my accounts and sending hateful messages. My Instagram and LinkedIn were flooded with accusations from people who didn't even know me. They even tried to report my accounts multiple times. At first, I was furious. Amber's spin on the story was so far removed from reality that it felt like a slap in the face. But as the lawyer had advised, I saved every message, every comment, and every screenshot of her videos. This wasn't just online drama, it was evidence. Through it all, I kept my focus on the trip. The whirlwind of meetings and presentations helped me channel my energy into something productive. My boss pulled me aside halfway through and praised my work, hinting at more opportunities in the future. Knowing I'd managed to impress him despite everything, gave me a renewed sense of purpose. Even so, the weight of what was happening back home never fully left my mind. Amber's audience was growing, and with it, so was the hate directed at me. Her followers pieced together enough details to identify me, and the messages became more personal. Strangers were calling me names, accusing me of being manipulative, and some even dug up old photos of us together, reposting them with captions that twisted the truth. The lawyer remained a steady source of guidance through it all. He assured me that the more evidence I gathered, the stronger my case would be. Amber's actions were creating a pattern of behavior that only strengthened my position. By the end of the trip, I had a clear plan. I would return home, meet with the lawyer in person, and move forward with filing a formal complaint. The passport incident alone was enough to justify legal action, but her social media campaign added another layer. She wasn't just trying to ruin my career, she was trying to ruin my reputation. The last night of the trip was spent organizing everything. I had screenshots of her videos, copies of the hateful messages, and a detailed timeline of events. The anger I'd felt earlier had transformed into resolve. Amber might have thought she could control the narrative, but the truth was on my side. The trip had been a success, but the fallout from Amber's actions wasn't over. Her attempts to spin the story in her favor had only strengthened my determination to hold her accountable. Landing back home felt like a fresh start, even though I knew the storm was far from over. I had meetings lined up with my lawyer to finalize the case against Amber, and there were still loose ends to tie up, like the lease and my belongings at the apartment. But despite the weight of everything, I felt a sense of control. The lawyer moved quickly, filing complaints against Amber for destruction of property and interference with my travel. The evidence we'd gathered, the torn passport, screenshots of her messages, and even the TikToks she had posted, painted a clear picture of her actions. She had crossed the line in more ways than one, and now there were consequences. She was formally served, and while I didn't attend the proceedings directly, my lawyer kept me updated. The court ordered her to pay for the replacement passport, the added travel expenses I incurred, and a small penalty for property destruction. Amber's social media campaign, which had initially gained her sympathy, began to unravel. As details of the case surfaced, her followers started questioning her version of events. People dug deeper, and some discovered my professional reputation and the fact that I had kept quiet publicly while handling things legally. The narrative started shifting, and cracks began to form in the pedestal she had built for herself. Her TikTok account, once a hub of quirky, feel-good content, became a battleground. Comments flooded in, accusing her of lying and exaggerating the truth. She tried to post another tearful video, claiming she was being unfairly targeted, but by then, people weren't buying it. The backlash was swift. Brands she had worked with distanced themselves, and her follower count started to drop. Through mutual acquaintances, I learned that Amber was struggling. The apartment she stayed in after I kicked her out was too expensive for her to afford on her own. She moved back in with her parents shortly after, and word spread that her once glamorous social media presence was becoming increasingly bitter and erratic. Meanwhile, my life had moved on. Work was thriving, and the success of the trip had positioned me for new opportunities. My boss praised my professionalism and hinted at even bigger projects in the pipeline. For the legal action against Amber, I let the lawyer handle the details, but knowing it was moving forward gave me peace of mind. Occasionally, I'd hear from friends about the latest drama Amber was stirring online. She had tried to spin a new narrative, claiming she was bullied off the internet, but by then, the damage to her reputation was done. She had alienated too many people, and her attempts to rebuild her following flopped. I stayed focused, keeping my head down and avoiding anything that would drag me back into her orbit. But Amber wasn't ready to let go. The other evening, after a particularly long day at work, I arrived home to find her sitting on the steps outside my new apartment building. She looked different, tired, disheveled, and far from the confident person she used to present herself as. She was holding something in her hand, and as I got closer, I realized it was the engagement ring. "Jason," she said softly, standing up as I approached. I didn't say anything at first, just stared at her. "I just want to talk," she said, her voice trembling. "Please." I crossed my arms, keeping my distance. "There's nothing to talk about, Amber. You made your choices." Tears welled up in her eyes, and she held out the ring like it was some kind of peace offering. "I messed up. I know I did. But I love you. I'll do anything to fix this." Her words felt empty, like an echo of the same excuses and justifications she'd given before. She wasn't here out of love. She was here because she had nothing left. "I'm not interested," I said firmly. "Take the ring. Sell it and go into therapy. I don't care. But don't come back here again. Her face crumpled, and for a moment, it looked like she might argue. But something in my expression must have told her I wasn't going to bend, because she stepped back, clutching the ring tightly. I'm sorry, she whispered, barely audible. I didn't respond. I turned and walked past her, unlocking the door to my building and stepping inside without looking back. Amber never came back after that. Whatever lingering hope she had of reconciliation was gone, and I felt nothing but relief. But you know what? The experience taught me more than I ever wanted to learn about trust and manipulation. Amber loved me, but she became obsessed to the level she turned into a psychopath. But in the end, all she had done was reveal her true self. I'd walked away stronger, with a clearer sense of who I was and what I deserved. And her? She was just a memory now, one I was glad to leave behind. Was I too harsh in cutting her off completely? Or does this seem justified to you?